Now, I've been seeing on YouTube a bunch of different charts going into where we are in the cycle, and they always use incredibly complex indicators, but I've always found that less is more when it comes to crypto. So what we have here is the RSI on the weekly, and then the entire history of Bitcoin's price at the top. And we can see time after time, cycle after cycle, every time the RSI bottoms, we get a bottom on Bitcoin's price. Now, I've added a faint dotted line right here to line them up exactly, and you can see they are incredibly exact. The exact bottom of the RSI is the exact bottom of the price right here, and yeah, we can see the exact same thing happening for this cycle too, this cycle too, this cycle too. Technically it wasn't the bottom, but honestly it was close enough. And you'll notice something very interesting on this last box right here, which is that the RSI has been trending down as you do in bear markets for some time now. However, we haven't hit the lows we hit in the last two cycles. I'm not really going to count this cycle because, you know, this was Bitcoin in its incredibly early days, right? But these three cycles right here basically got to the bottom of the RSI range, and yeah, I mean, we seem to be traveling down there. I mean, we broke through a pretty obvious support level here. I mean, it doesn't really matter how you want to draw this. I mean, you could draw this way. We've clearly broken through it, and yeah, we haven't reached quite the bottom of this RSI range quite yet, like we did in the previous three cycles. So I mean, I'm gonna be real, this to me is clearly showing that we could easily have a leg down in the coming months for Bitcoin, and that this dip that we just had isn't the end of it. Now, what's very interesting as well that I do want to point out is the fact that the RSI actually topped in 2024, yet Bitcoin's price continued up, guys. It continued up for the last 2 or so years, and Bitcoin actually did a similar thing in the last cycle. If we take a look at this right here, we can see the RSI actually topped right here earlier than the Bitcoin top, and then for a year straight Bitcoin was consolidating, but it then went on to make a higher high but with a lower RSI. So this right here was a bearish divergence. The RSI was going down, yet price was going up. That's a bad sign, as price normally tends to end up following the RSI back down. And yeah, I mean, we have seen the exact same thing playing out right now as well, right? This is a massive divergence for the RSI. It topped right here. Bitcoin kept going up. It seems to be losing steam, all whilst the RSI, the relative strength index, it shows you the strength in the market, was going down, right? In my opinion, it's very obvious to me we are very likely gonna have another leg down at some point. It doesn't need to happen in the short term. Short-term pumps are still possible. We could go to 100k randomly, right? But you know, at some point in the coming months, I think we will take out this low right here, and yeah, I reckon the go all in spot, the bottom spot for Bitcoin, will be when the RSI goes to the bottom of this purple range right here, so this dotted line right here. Now, before I get to my shorter term view of the market, be sure to check out the links I have down below to the top crypto exchanges that I use to trade on. So getting into the shorter term look, now the reason why I think Bitcoin could still bounce in the very, very short term is due to this hit of the cyclic polygamma band. If you haven't watched my videos before, this thing basically called the last few bottoms, right? If you take a look at this, it hit it right here, and if it wasn't for the FTX crash, this would have been the bottom. Down here, it got hit in COVID, it got hit right here at the 2019-2018 cycle bottom. And yeah, it got hit right here, you know, right before the market reversed, and again right here. So and this, you know, led to a huge pump to the upside, about like 3 to 2x, right? So basically this thing, whenever it gets hit, either leads to a cycle bottom or at least just a massive pump, right? So and I do really trust this indicator, right? So I do think short term, you know, I wouldn't be too surprised if, you know, Bitcoin does manage to pull off a short-term pump to, you know, maybe the 100k region or so. Not only that, but the S&P 500 is also going up, which does add a lot of strength to Bitcoin. It literally just made a new all-time high today, so this generally is showing the macro is looking good, and Bitcoin altcoin historically is pretty correlated to the S&P 500 and the macro. So this is a good sign for the short term. So in my opinion, I mean, looking at all of these factors, I do think, decent shot. We've got a short-term pump on our hands, but, medium term, I do think we could have that next leg down due to the RSI that I just showed you. And yeah, if we do get that next leg down, I do think this region right here, the 70 to 50k zone, in my opinion, is a good place to start DCAing for me into a huge long-term crypto long. All right, that's everything I wanted to cover in this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.